Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody in between, to the Vacant Wrestling Podcast. My name is Tyler, and I'm going it alone this week. And the reason why is a little sad, so I got a quick story for you. So, this past weekend, I was actually on vacation. I was seeing my girlfriend, Linnea, in New Jersey. So, Linnea, shout out to you. I had a blast. And Emil and Yusuf had planned to record a duos edition of the Vacant Wrestling Podcast on Sunday. On Sundays, we talk wrestling here, if you didn't already know. So we can post the podcast on Monday, so y'all can listen to it and catch up on the previous week's wrestling programming before a new week starts with Monday Night Raw. But unfortunately, we used Riverside to record our program, and unfortunately, Yusuf's audio did not. I don't really know how to describe it, but basically we record into Riverside, and we are able to then download high quality audio of the session that we have, video and audio. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, Yusuf's audio did not make it to Riverside, even though Emil could hear him the entire time. So we did not have audio for Yusuf the entire podcast, so we couldn't use that, unfortunately, because I would have been intrigued to hear what they had to say, because apparently, according to Emil, there was a lot of shit talked about your boy, about me. I know my takes are so good that they can't really talk about it unless I'm not there, but hey, man, that's what you get for not watching product. Fully joking. But yeah, unfortunately, that didn't really pan out, so I decided to, still get a podcast out there. It's very late, and I apologize for that, and we all apologize for that. But we're not stopping. Even if it's late, we're going to get one out, hopefully, unless something really, catastrophic is going on, or we're really, really busy and can't get something out to you. Just some quick updates and housekeeping things here. Thank you so much for all the love you guys have been showing us on TikTok, on YouTube. If you haven't already, go check us out at Vacant Wrestling on TikTok. We post a lot of highlights from the podcast, so a lot of these clips from today, you're going to see that over the course of the next week on our TikTok. And then also on YouTube as well. We are, if you're listening to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, or anywhere you get your podcast, and Apple Podcast actually, not Apple Music, then you might not know that we're also on YouTube, and you might want a video format of that podcast. So you can head over to YouTube for a full video version of the Vacant Wrestling Podcast, where you can see my face, and you can see Emil's face and Yusuf's face and everybody's face involved with this wonderful, wonderful podcast. We're currently at 130 subscribers on YouTube. We've started at 0, y'all. I have not promoted this to any of my friends, and we have not promoted it to any of our friends outside of the podcast. This is 100% organic and 100% wrestling followers, wrestling community members coming over to the channels that we have. So we really, really appreciate it. And on TikTok, we are currently sitting at 67 followers. We had a couple actually break the 1,000 view threshold, and one of them actually, I believe it was one where I booked what I think should happen at SummerSlam in terms of Roman Reigns returning. That's broken 2,500 views, and still continues to slowly climb now, even though it was posted days ago, which is absolutely insane. It's only up from here, y'all. So get in from the ground level. Get in on the ground level. Go follow us at Vacant Wrestling on TikTok and Vacant Wrestling over on YouTube. We really, really appreciate it. I might get back to doing some Raw and SmackDown review videos on the YouTube channel as well, so please do go check that out. And we've been kicking the can around of talking about some different ideas that we can do to really make the YouTube channel something special and really have some standout content that's not just the podcast, that's not just the Raw and SmackDown reviews. It's going to be, we've talked about bringing back the Vacant Wrestling Roundtable, and if you followed us if you're one of the OG Vacant Wrestling podcast subscribers, you would know the Vacant Roundtable is usually when we all come in and we propose different questions that might be a little polarizing. It's meant to drive discourse. Questions that might not be particularly related to the current wrestling landscape. It could be a general question of, should WWE make the PLEs bigger, like more matches, or should they stick to these smaller cards? Just things like that. General questions that may or may not apply to what's going on currently in the WWE and in the greater wrestling landscape. So please go check it out. We really appreciate it. And again, the only way this channel improves and the only way we improve is by your support. So we really, really appreciate it, and we hope in the future that we can continue to offer more and more and more content and upgrade and really make this content that you're watching right now even better or listening to. So really appreciate that. So because we're in the middle of the week, we're going to have to jump in from last week's Friday Night SmackDown, and then we'll jump into this week's Monday Night Raw, and then Tuesday night's NXT from this week. We won't go super in depth on the NXT, but we'll definitely talk about the major points. So yeah, let's jump into Friday Night SmackDown. Absolutely a stellar program, programming week for WWE as a whole, honestly. SmackDown is, honestly, in my opinion, still the weakest of the WWE shows, but it's still really, really solid programming and a good watch overall. I truly believe that WWE, week after week, is putting out top-tier television programming. I've never seen television programming worth so much value in my 15 years as a pro wrestling fan. I started in 2009, so right at like the beginning of the peak of Super Cena, which got a little too much, as we all know. So it's really cool to see where we're at now. And we kick off SmackDown with a Cody Rhodes promo, the WWE Undisputed Champion. He shouts out Randy Orton for mentoring him, which is pretty cool, saying he wouldn't be WWE Champion without Randy Orton. So we're clearly building to this Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton program moving forward. I'm really looking forward to that, and I think that's the next step after this Bloodline feud. I think after SummerSlam, I believe that Cody is gonna split off from the Bloodline stuff, go do his own thing, and the Bloodline are going to be tied up with Roman Reigns and the OG Bloodline. That's where I think we're going with both ends of this feud. But for now, we have this promo where Cody came out and talked about everything that's been going on recently with the Bloodline, and saying that he wouldn't be here without Randy Orton, and that Randy is family to him. Randy Orton is his brother. This story is gonna be insane because of all of the backstory and all of the history and the sentimental value that Cody has in his relationship with Randy Orton. It's really gonna be built on that, I think. So I am super duper excited to see where we go from here. It's gonna be sick. And I think that's gonna really carry the post SummerSlam WWE, maybe into Survivor Series and maybe beyond into the end of the year. So we'll see where it goes. A-Town Down Under interrupt Cody, and then a 2-on-1 brawl ensues. Cody's trying to go after both of them. And at ringside is boxer Terrence Crawford. He's from the Omaha, Nebraska area. SmackDown is in Omaha for the evening, and he hands Cody Rhodes a chair to even the odds. So Cody fends off A-Town Down Under, and then we go backstage where Cody's asking Nick Aldis to fight A-Town Down Under that night, 2-on-1. But Aldis insists you need to find a partner. Which it's really smart writing there, because Aldis is like, listen, I'm the general manager. You're my champion. I need to protect you. I can't have you fighting these guys in a 2-on-1 match. That's not safe. So I love that. I love that. Nick Aldis is continuously being the logical, sensible voice of reason as a general manager. It's really great. We kick off with Andrade defeating Carmelo Hayes. I was honestly shocked by this outcome. I love this feud. This is an awesome, lower mid card, I would say, television feud for these guys. I just think that I thought Carmelo was going to get the win first, but I think that Carmelo is going to win the overall feud. So because I don't think that they're done. Andrade hits the message, his finishing move for the win, and this match was honestly match of the night in a night where there were not many wrestling matches at all. There were 4 matches on this card. SmackDown, once again, not having a whole lot of wrestling for being the show that used to be wrestling-centric and wrestling-focused, while Raw was more about the storytelling. Ever since this Bloodline feud, it's kind of been switched, where SmackDown's kind of been the story-heavy show. And while Raw is 3 hours and still has really good storytelling, there's a lot more wrestling happening on Monday Night Raw, and I think that extra hour is the reason for that. I think it really helps that. So Andrade defeats Carmelo Hayes. I'm assuming we're going to continue getting some more stuff from these guys. The logic in me and the logical outcome, in my opinion, would be Carmelo overall wins this feud. And after SummerSlam, when LA Knight beats Logan Paul for the United States title, Carmelo will be LA Knight's first challenger if Logan Paul does not get a rematch. And if he does get a rematch, then Hayes will be the next guy after Logan Paul. And I just want to say, once again, since this feud is probably going to be revisited, I did it first. I did it first in my 2K24 universe mode. Over the Intercontinental Championship, they were both on my Raw brand. I drafted new rosters and all that, but off topic. Next match, we got Bianca Belair defeating Chelsea Green. So Chelsea goes to roll up Bianca, and Bianca counters it into her own roll up and gets the pin for the win. So Bianca pins Chelsea Green, and after the match, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn come on the big screen to trash talk Belair and Jade Cargill, because the next the story here has been that Belair and Cargill have been trying to go after Alba Fire and Isla Dawn's women's tag team championships. I'm surprised that they even did that. I really thought that I really thought that was the end of Bianca and Jade as tag champions, but I think they might either revisit it and lose the rematch, or they might win them back. I don't really know what they're gonna do with this. I hope that Fire and Dawn retain, and we get this breakup finally, or at least just some, like, let's go our separate ways and be two singles wrestlers, but not wrestle each other, and let's just like amicably, do our own thing for a bit, and then maybe we get the split somehow down the line. But who knows? I'm cool with it. I'm open to whatever. I hope, as long as Jade is the one that turns on Bianca, I'll be happy. Speaking of LA Knight and Logan Paul, I mentioned it earlier in the show, but Logan Paul is out in the ring with LA Knight and Nick Aldis to sign the SummerSlam contract. LA Knight feels very forced to hold back on what he says about Logan Paul. It really seems to me like they're trying to protect Logan Paul's character because he's this big celebrity. I don't know. Something doesn't feel the same about LA Knight in this feud, and I just want it to pass. I will say this feels like a big fight, though. This really does feel like a big feud, and it's about time that it's happened. So LA Knight's forced to hold back. He's to avoid damaging Logan Paul's character. Meanwhile, Logan Paul's saying, literally, I quote Logan Paul, "You are a gym bro with a spray tan and a catchphrase, pretending to be The Rock." And honestly, that's a pretty sick burn by Logan Paul. So basically, LA Knight is trash talking Logan Paul, and it basically goads Logan Paul and checks his ego, and it goads him into signing the contract. So at first he didn't want to sign it. Eventually, LA Knight got Logan Paul to do it. So it's official now. LA Knight versus Logan Paul for the United States Championship at SummerSlam. And I am very excited to see LA Knight finally win his first singles championship in WWE. It's a long time coming. Absolutely should have been done already, but this is a good way to do it. This is a great way to do it after all this time. So Logan Paul goes to leave the ring. He psychs him out, jumps back in the ring, and jumps Knight when LA Knight's back was turned. But LA Knight fights back, and LA Knight stands tall. Logan Paul ends up escaping out of the ring before Knight can hit the BFT. But yeah, Logan Paul still looks strong, but LA Knight is the one standing tall at the end of the segment. I really hope they don't have Logan Paul retain. I'm a little scared that they will, and I'll tell you why. I think recently I saw an article that Logan Paul, I believe, is now the third longest U.S. champion in history. And I don't know how far off he is from the second and first place holders of that, of people who have held the title longer than him. But I really hope they don't have him hold the title until he breaks that record, because I really think this is the time to take it off of Logan Paul and for LA Knight to win the title. This is already still a big accomplishment for Logan Paul to be the champion for this long. So I think that this is great. Logan Paul is fine. He should have defended the title more, but he didn't. It's okay. That's how it is. He's a heel. He's a celebrity. He doesn't really need to defend the title a whole lot. I believe he only defended it twice. So this will be his third defense, and he'll probably lose to LA Knight at SummerSlam. I hope the match is good. The promos have been really good when they happen and when we finally get Logan Paul in the same room as LA Knight. But yeah, we should be in for a treat for sure. Next up, we had Michin defeat Tiffany Stratton. I was shocked by this. I don't understand why they did this. Bayley came out to distract Tiffany. Nia tries to stop Bayley because Nia's at ringside since she's buddies with Tiffany. That fails. Bayley takes out Nia. And then for some reason they had Bayley destroy the Money in the Bank briefcase. So they had her like smash it against the corner outside of the ring, the corner post. They had her open it up and stand it up on the floor and have her stomp it to try and make it like, make her, I guess they were trying to have her like break it in half, but I guess it didn't work. So that was weird. It failed. It did break. I don't know. It was really awkward. And then she just slides the case in the ring to Tiffany after Michin beats her with a roll-up. Great. Good for Michin, I suppose. I don't really care about Michin's character right now. As amazing as she is in the ring and as great of a person she is, I'm hard-pressed to care. I don't really know. So yeah, Bayley kind of looks oddly like a heel right now, especially in doing that, especially when Tiffany is low-key a face right now in the eyes of the fans, even though she's booked as a heel on television and being paired up with Nia. I think this is just the easy way of getting Tiffany to give the case a makeover and have her own case, but I wish I kind of don't really understand why they had Bayley break the case for no reason. They could have just had Tiffany bring out a new one. They didn't really need Bayley to break the case. It's giving John Cena and Dolph Ziggler. I think that was when Cena broke and dented Ziggler's case, but Ziggler still carried around the dented case. I don't really know, but yeah, just didn't really do it for me. It made Bayley look like a heel, and she's not supposed to be. But sure, I'm not against it. I'm not for it, but yeah, we'll see where they go. I think the growing consensus right now that I'm hearing on the internet is that Nia's going to lose to Bayley, and then Nia's going to attack Bayley, and Tiffany's going to cash in. I honestly really hope they don't do that. I hope that Nia wins, and if Tiffany cashes in there, that's fine, I guess, but I kind of want Nia to have a long reign, or a longer reign, at least past the night of SummerSlam. I mean, you have Nia win the case for a bit and hold the title for a bit. Excuse me. You have Nia hold the title for a bit. You have the opportunity to have Tiffany turn face and cash in on Nia, and she's already being cheered by the fans. Like, as good as she is as a heel, she's so good that we like her as a fan base. So I don't see the point in keeping her a heel as much. I mean, she can be a heel, but she could be like she could be like LA Knight, like he acts like a heel towards other heels, which makes him a babyface in that sense. So I think that Tiffany could be booked in a similar way. And we have her, take out Nia and all that. I think that would work. I think that would really work. Just fixing my microphone here. All right. Next up, the main event of the evening, we had Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens defeat A-Town Down Under in a tag team match. So Cody ended up finding Kevin Owens to be his partner, which is awesome. KO's back on TV. Yeah, so there was an interesting moment where, we're still playing out the story of the breakup of A-Town Down Under, where Waller he goes to hit the high knee, the jumping knee, and he almost hits Theory with it, but Theory caught him, and there was a moment where they were kind of like staring at each other in that position. It led to a tense moment, and I'm sure we'll get something else down the line. It'll grow to something else. I really hope that Theory can break out and become an awesome, awesome babyface, because he has a lot of potential. And I think that it hasn't really worked for him as a heel in WWE. So I would love to see them give him a shot as a babyface. I think it could work. I really do. So later on in the match, Waller then pushes Theory into harm's way once again to take a Cody cutter. So Waller's still, getting Theory into these situations where he's the one getting the brunt of the offense getting the offense. And Waller is, sacrificing Theory constantly. So at some point, Theory's going to break, I'm sure. KO stuns Grayson Waller, and then Cody hits the Crossroads on Theory for the win. So KO and Cody Rhodes win that tag match. And then immediately after that, they're celebrating in the ring. Solo Sikoa's music hits, and the Bloodline starts making their way out. A brawl ensues, 3-on-2. It's the Tongans and Solo against Cody and KO. And then Jacob Fatu comes out and stops the Faces from putting Solo through the announce table. Fatu then goes and hits multiple, he gets KO in the ring, puts him in the corner, and hits multiple stink faces on KO, and it looked brutal, and it sounded brutal. The ring was shaking. It was crazy, dude. Jacob Fatu is a freak of nature. For real. He's a freak of nature. Literally, he starts on opposite corner, right? He's leaning in the opposite corner, runs at him, hits the stink face. That corner, you hear like, I don't even know, like a snap or something, like a crash sound. Like you can hear him slam into the corner. And then he runs back to the opposite corner. That corner slams. He runs back and slams into the corner again when he hits KO for a second time. He hits him like at least 3 or 4 times. It was crazy. He then lays out KO and then hits a diving headbutt on him. And then Fatu, Solo, and Tama Tonga triple powerbomb Cody through the announce table. Tama Tonga then picks up KO, puts a chair around KO's neck, and slams him into the LED post on the outside. And the SmackDown closes with Jacob Fatu putting the Ulafala over Solo Sikoa. And the show closes with the Bloodline once again, same as last week and the week before that, throwing the ones up over a fallen Cody Rhodes. And while I enjoyed this, I'm getting a little sick of it. I don't really know why. I know it's been repetitive. That's for sure. It's, they did it with Paul. They've done it with KO and Orton and Cody multiple times now. And it's, I don't know. It's just starting to get a little repetitive. Like, can we do this at a different point in the show than the end? Could we put one of them in a match instead of having them just come out after the faces? Because at this point, the faces should be expecting the Bloodline to come out after the main event match that they're in and then get the shit beaten out of them, get beat up. So I don't really know. I want to enjoy it. I really do. But part of me is like, this is a little too repetitive. I don't know. It's just not doing it for me right now. So I'm still on board. I want to give them another week, maybe something like that. Maybe another week, maybe another couple of weeks. I'm not sure. If I keep seeing this, I'm going to lose interest. I will say that now. Cody versus Solo already doesn't necessarily feel like a SummerSlam main event to me, and yet it's going to close the show because, in my opinion, Roman Reigns is going to return at the end of the show after Cody retains over Solo. So that's a given. That's closing SummerSlam, and that's your SummerSlam main event, and I'm hard pressed to enjoy it and be enthralled by it. It's not boding very well. I don't know. Solo's doing the best he can with it. He's getting better every week, and I will commend him for that. He's doing amazing work. It's just the writing is too repetitive. We need to do something else. And we were talking about it in the group chat, but this whole combination of Cody, KO, and Randy Orton is giving the whole thing last year that we had with Cody, Sammy, Jey Uso, Seth Rollins, and the Judgment Day, like where it's just the heel faction and the group of random baby faces, singles guys, just coming together to stop the heel faction. It makes sense, KO, Orton, Rhodes, they all have a lot of history with the Bloodline, right? But it's just a little much, I think. I think we need to find new ways to spice up this story because right now it seems very formulaic. It's the end of the night, the baby faces win the match, and then the Bloodline come out and attack them. And put him triple power bomb. That's like and Fatu goes crazy. That's a given, right? Fatu is gonna go stupid and really show out. that's pretty much it. So that's how SmackDown ends. And overall, like I said, pretty solid episode. Nothing crazy, nothing to write home about, and not a lot of wrestling either. But it did what it needed to do. It told the stories that it needed to tell. And that's how we ended last week's SmackDown. So jumping over to Monday Night Raw, we started out hot, and we really are building to this feud between Gunther and Damian Priest for the World Heavyweight title. So Gunther's out there to open Raw. He calls out Damian Priest while saying Priest isn't a worthy champion, which, by the way, it feels weird for him to say that now because just a couple of weeks ago in the build to Money in the Bank, he complimented Damian Priest for carrying the company and carrying Monday Night Raw on his back. So I don't understand what changed. If anything, it should be even more appreciation for Damian Priest because Priest had just beaten Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre in a triple threat at Money in the Bank. So I don't really understand that, but he said that Priest wasn't a worthy champion and wants Priest to hand over the title and go back to the trailer park, which again, Gunther's 0 for 2 because there are not trailer parks in New York City, at least not in the downtown areas where Damian Priest is from. So Priest comes out, he goes to, like he's going to say something, he fakes him out and attacks Gunther, and then we get a pull apart brawl. Priest landed a big kick on the face of Gunther. And then we cut to commercial. We come back from commercial, and they're still fighting backstage. Referees breaking it up, producers, all of that stuff. Adam Pearce running out to break it up. So it ends with the two of them broken up, and it's a big chaotic mess. And that's exactly what we needed from this. Listen, Priest looked amazing in this. I still firmly believe that Damian Priest needed a clean victory, and he should have gotten that at Money in the Bank over Seth Rollins, but he didn't. This is the reality we are in. But Priest is getting better every week. He's finally starting to feel like a champion to me. He's finally feeling like he has aura, and I really am so glad that they are not involving the Judgment Day or Imperium in this. Unfortunately, on the Imperium side, it's probably because Ludwig Kaiser is injured. I know a couple weeks ago there was a report that Kaiser was injured at the hands of what happened with Braun Breaker, I believe, and Sheamus, the spot where he had I think Sheamus had Kaiser up for a powerbomb, and Breaker speared Sheamus, and it knocked both of them down. I think that's where Kaiser got injured. So unfortunately, that's a thing. But I'm glad that it's just Gunther and just Damian. And it doesn't need the rest of the Judgment Day. And it honestly plays into the dissension in Judgment Day, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So yeah, we're building intrigue for that World Heavyweight title match. And honestly, I know if you watched the podcast last week, I believe, Emil and I went through SummerSlam and made our predictions of the card, what the card looks like, and we also included some outcomes as well, who we think are going to win these matches. And we predicted that Gunther is going to easily destroy Damian Priest and win the title. Honestly, I'm starting to feel like they might have Damian win. They might have Damian get that clean win over Gunther, and I'm a little scared because this feels like a must win for both guys. Like, Priest needs a clean win as champion in order to feel like it was a legitimate reign and it was something worth doing. Meanwhile, Gunther needs to win this because he needs to look strong as hell if he's going to be the world champion. And I feel like having him take a clean loss to Damian Priest before he takes the title and goes on a tear with it isn't going to do him any favors. So I'm not sure what they're going to do, but it's making me want to root for Damian Priest, honestly. But I think that Gunther's still going to win that title at SummerSlam. I think that's almost a foregone conclusion. First match of the night that I have on here, I think Raw is completely out of order, so please forgive me. Braun Breaker defeated Ilya Dragunov as a result of ref stoppage. So Ilya Dragunov hit the attitude adjustment on Gunther on the edge of the ring. Breaker hit a mid-air spear on Dragunov. Dragunov went to hit a Torpedo Moscow off the ring apron to Breaker on the outside, and Breaker just caught him mid-air with a spear and absolutely freaking annihilated him, dude. It was insane. And then Dragunov's laying outside the ring. Breaker slides back in, and the ref is checking up on Ilya, and she comes to the conclusion he can't continue. So Braun Breaker wins via ref stoppage. It's a rare finish. It makes Ilya look really fucking strong. It makes Breaker look fucking incredible. And it's exactly what he needed. So Breaker wins. I can't tell if he's happy about it or not. I think he's happy about it, but because he's always like mad that things happen in his matches that prevent him from actually finishing them. But Breaker won, and it begs the question, man, because there was so much love for Braun Breaker. The crowd was cheering. They're doing the hoot hoot with Braun, like the barking. It's really amazing. It's really amazing, and I don't understand how they can keep Braun Breaker a heel, and I don't think they will. I really don't. So I'm not really sure what they'll do there, but regardless, Braun Breaker, and this was a number one contenders match as well. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. So Braun Breaker now is officially challenging Sami Zayn for the Intercontinental Championship at SummerSlam, and I think that is where we finally get Braun Breaker defeating Sami Zayn and winning the Intercontinental Championship. And honestly, as upset as I was that he lost to Sami at Money in the Bank, I'm glad Sami got the win in Toronto. I'm glad that Sami got another big win in a match where people were betting against him. It just goes to his character now. His character is the underdog, right? You don't bet against the underdog. You don't bet against Sami Zayn. He's not an underdog anymore. And I love that for Sami Zayn. He deserves to be recognized as a top-level talent. But no one has allowed him to get to that level because he's been the underdog for so long. So for him to beat Braun Breaker at Money in the Bank, it now allows them to save this coronation of Braun Breaker for a bigger stage for SummerSlam. and it allowed Sami Zayn to keep building this character of underdog no more. And I'm really happy that they did it. I'm really happy. And in hindsight, they did the right thing. And it's going to be a great match at SummerSlam. I can tell you that. Real quick here, Sonya Deville defeated Lyra Valkyria. Shayna Baszler distracted the referee. Zoe Stark pushed Lyra off the top rope and allowed Sonya to take advantage and hit the Deville's Advocate for the W. That's a clever name for that finisher, by the way. It's not a great finisher, but it's a clever name for sure. So that was pretty good. We're building this faction with Sonya, Shayna, and Zoe. It's off to a good start. We got a win. Sonya needed a win. I'm happy about it. At the top of the 9 o'clock hour, CM Punk came out and announced that he is medically cleared to compete, which is awesome. Thank God. They were worried that he was not going to be cleared in time for SummerSlam to have this match with Drew McIntyre, but it looks like it came around. It looks like they came around and they made it work, which is amazing. So CM Punk is officially cleared. He calls out Drew McIntyre to fight, and Drew comes out, says he doesn't want to fight. So Punk runs after McIntyre to go and get him, and the refs keep them separated. Eventually, Adam Pearce comes out, announces that Drew McIntyre is reinstated, and that Drew versus Punk is official for SummerSlam. And this match, in my opinion, should be the main event. However, they also added one quick caveat. There will be a special guest referee, and his name is Seth Rollins. So, Drew versus Punk with Seth as special guest referee, official for SummerSlam. And I have some thoughts. Like I said, I really feel that Drew versus Punk as a singles match without Seth Rollins should have been the main event of SummerSlam. We've been building to this for months. 2 megastars. Drew is incredible. Punk is incredible. I don't know, man. There's no feud like it right now. There's no feud at the level of Drew versus CM Punk, in my opinion. The closest thing they have is Rhea versus Liv, but the problem is Rhea hasn't been there to really further the feud. It's mostly been carried by Liv and Dominic in the Judgment Day. But Punk and Drew have been there week after week. They've been taking turns. They've been there together. And even though both of them were injured at different points and not able to compete, they were still able to cut promos and be on TV and really further this feud that they have. It also helped that Punk was not cleared to wrestle, but cleared enough to take some bumps and do some stage stuff like, the attack that Drew did on CM Punk in Chicago SmackDown backstage and stuff like that. So, yeah, man, I think that should have been the main event of SummerSlam. However, I really don't understand why they needed to force Seth Rollins into this. They have built for months a one-on-one feud between They have spent months building a one-on-one feud between Drew McIntyre and CM Punk And the reason why that happened was because they had Seth divert and pivot and go over to the Bloodline story and feud with the Bloodline along with Cody Rhodes against The Rock and Roman Reigns. So I don't know, man. To me, that was the moment where Seth was out of this CM Punk feud for the time being. And for him to just show up and be thrown back into it because Punk had to interfere in his match at Money in the Bank, the interference shouldn't have happened. McIntyre should have never won the case. And then... Sorry, let me start again. McIntyre shouldn't have won the case. Punk shouldn't have interfered in that match because Drew wouldn't have had the case. And then Seth wouldn't have been crossed by Punk. And then we would have had Drew versus Punk continue to be one-on-one. Seth could have done something else. What you could have done is had Braun beat Sammy for the Intercontinental Championship and then have Seth challenge Braun for the title at SummerSlam. I don't know how you get there, but it's pretty easy for Seth to say, listen, I want your title, and you've been around here kicking the crap out of people, and I need to put you in your place. I'm the guy in the locker room, and you're running crazy in my locker room, and I need to stop you. You're running around destroying people in my locker room, and I'm the locker room leader, and you got to go down. I got to take your title and teach you a lesson. And then you have Braun win against Seth. You have Seth in a meaningful match. Instead, you have him the special guest referee in a feud that he shouldn't even be in my opinion, right now. I think we really could have made the most out of this and gotten Drew versus Punk one-on-one, nobody else involved, at SummerSlam. You have Drew win, and then maybe you have Seth interfere there, maybe, but I don't want that either. I want Drew to win clean. And then the feud continues. And then Seth gets involved in that. And then you get the triple threat between Seth, Drew, and CM Punk. Maybe you then have CM Punk win that match. Because Seth does he really need to win any match in that? Not really. Not really. Seth can lose and bounce back. Punk could use, not that Punk could use a win, but I feel like he deserves at least one win. I don't really know. He hasn't even had a match yet. He only wrestled in the Royal Rumble and had one house show match against Dominic. So that technically we're not supposed to have known happened. So, it just doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't feel right to me to have Seth in this. It muddies it up. It makes Seth look like... It's a shame that Seth Rollins is spending SummerSlam not wrestling and being a guest referee in a match where he's in this feud where he's currently a background character technically, and he's going to be worked in as a main character, I'm sure. I'm sure they're going to do a triple threat, probably in Berlin, maybe at Bad Blood, sometime like that. I don't really know. But I really think that they rushed that. I think that we're rushing and working Seth in. We could have just had Drew and Punk and worked Seth in later. I'm not turned off from this feud at all. It's still amazing stuff. But from a business standpoint, from a creative standpoint, from a logic standpoint, this was about Drew and Punk. And Seth did not really need to be roped into this. It was just it's a sad story of like a lot of events that didn't need to happen that kind of forced Seth to now have to be involved in it. You could have had Seth involved in the World Heavyweight title match too. That would have felt like a big SummerSlam match. Damian, Gunther, and Seth, as opposed to just Damian and Gunther. That on paper doesn't really feel like a big fight match, a big SummerSlam, marquee match, So either way, I'm about it. It's still good TV. I'm still entertained. I'm still intrigued. I still want to know who's going to win, and I'm still really looking forward to this match. I just hope at the end of the day it's entertaining and they tell a good story with it. That's all you can hope for. And it's Triple H. You got to trust him. You really do. Later in the night, the Final Testament defeat Xavier Woods, Otis, and Akira Tozawa in a 6-man tag. Otis is still crazy over. First off, multiple hot tags, multiple crowd explosions, like crazy, crazy, crazy loud crowd. I'm shocked that Otis is still doing this well despite the bad booking he had back in 2020 with the Money in the Bank briefcase and being stuck in the tag team in the Alpha Academy with Gable and then adding Tozawa and Maxine and all that. I really thought that was the end, but I really think there's still legs on Otis being a singles guy. Maybe the IC title. I don't see him being a world champion, WWE or World Heavyweight, but I could see him being a mid-card champion 1,000%. And he'd be a good one. And they're doing a good job of, while he's still kind of goofy like he used to be, he's not cartoony. He's a real person, and he's got real emotion, and he's serious. And I'm about that. That's how we should be booking our comedy characters, honestly, because now I could seriously see Otis being a comedy champion, and he's not even really comedy. He's just a little goofy in the way he wrestles, and he's just like a big bulldozer of a man. You know what I mean? So good for Otis for still being over. He's an amazing wrestler. But Karrion Kross hits Xavier Woods with the final prayer for the win. Clean win. And I gotta say, it was much needed. The Final Testament continues to look a little silly, continues to look like a joke, but it's good that Karrion Kross is getting attention and getting a viable win over somebody. I just hope that Xavier can recover from that. I also just wish that we could... I want to say I want a motive from the Final Testament. I want to know what they're about. I want to know their motivations. But I feel like they already gave us that. And I don't really... and even though they did, I still can't really tell you what it is. Like, what they're doing. Like, what their point is in existing on the Monday Night Raw roster. And what they intend to do. But hey, they got to win. Hopefully, it's only up from here. Because the Final Testament does have potential as a stable. The AOP are fantastic. They're an amazing tag team. Regardless of how you feel about the way when they started that promotion or they started that indie show that they wanted to do and all that stuff, I'm not even going to go into detail about it. They're amazing wrestlers. And Karrion Kross is an amazing wrestler too. Now, let's not forget his run in Black and Gold. It was good stuff. But unfortunately, I don't know. Something hasn't clicked on the main roster with him. Even after beating Drew McIntyre, which is insane, it still just didn't really click all that much. But it's all good there, Hopefully they can continue this momentum and make something of it. Zelina Vega defeated Zoe Stark. So, like I said earlier, we had a really good start with this feud of Sonya, Zoe, and Shayna by having Sonya win her match. And then we just, kind of just say poo-poo to all that and have Zoe lose. So Sonya and Shayna attempt to distract Zelina, but Lyra Valkyria, Katana Chance, and Kaden Carter come out to even the odds. And then Zelina uses her arm brace that she had on a couple of times to hit her in the face, hit Zoe in the face with it, and then hit the code red for the victory. And they acted like commentary acted like it was a bigger moment than it was. Like, it was a big win for Zelina, but like, we know Zelina's a big deal. Like, we know Zelina's serious. Like, we just had her face Liv Morgan for the women's world title, and I feel like we wouldn't have done that if she wasn't a serious threat and she didn't have build. So I'm kind of confused as to why they told that story, but I guess that's what they're doing with it. Sure, why not? Also, why did Zoe Stark have to lose? Like, people were just mad that she was in the women's Money in the Bank match because they felt that she wasn't a big deal as a wrestler right now. They haven't paid a lot of attention to her. So people were upset that people like Dakota Kai weren't in the match and other people that deserved opportunities, while Zoe's gotten these opportunities, but they continue to not take full advantage of these opportunities. They kind of just have her in these matches, she loses, and then they just move on. And I don't have a problem with Zoe Stark, but it just makes me feel a little iffy about it. It doesn't sit right. So, I don't know. If they were going to, they had to really work hard to prove to everybody that Zoe Stark belonged in the women's Money in the Bank match. She had some amazing spots, and then they just have her lose on TV to Zelina Vega. It just doesn't make sense to me. Good for Zelina, though. It's good for Zelina. But stuff like this is making me honestly think that they are really building a women's mid-card scene so they can bring in those women's mid-card titles that they've been rumored to have to be planning. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but they're talking about bringing in 2 different women's mid-card championships, one on Raw, one on SmackDown. In my opinion, let's just have one and have it float between brands. I don't think we need 2. I don't think we're that far enough yet to have 2 mid-card titles on top of women's tag titles, on top of women's world titles. But if they do it, hey, throw it on Zelina, throw it on Zoe, throw it on Shayna, throw it on Sonya. You have so many options. And meanwhile, Zoe, Sonya, and Shayna are gunning for the women's tag titles as well. So we're really continuing to build this women's tag scene. I'll talk about it a little later, but we have a couple of teams in NXT that also want to vie for the women's tag team titles too. So Fire and Dawn have a long list of potential challengers. They're just not doing anything. Like, they're just not having the champions on TV. They're having all these teams say, we want the women's tag titles, but then they don't have Fire and Dawn show up. So are you going to do something about that? Or are you just going to have them keep saying, I want a challenge for the titles, and then not follow up on it? Or not build to any of it? The only one they're building to is Bianca and Jade, which is weird. It really makes the other teams just feel like chopped liver. Like, I don't know, man. Maybe some more defined feuds. Maybe have Fire and Dawn on TV, and maybe have them defend it against people in non-title, in like, have them retain the titles, have them defend the titles before they get to Jade and Bianca and lose the titles inevitably, right? Or I'm sorry, maybe not. Maybe they don't lose them to Bianca and Jade, but have them defend the titles a couple more times before you get to Bianca and Jade. We don't need them to be the first challengers, right? Especially when you have so many teams that are wanting to make that challenge. Later in the night, we got a Wyatt 6 video, and this time we focus on Abby the Witch, or Nikki Cross, if you're familiar with the identities of these people behind the mask. The narrator saying that they ignored her, they watched her suffer in solitude, and then they say, look at yourself. She cries and screams, and then the video immediately cuts out. So we're starting to get videos that are focused on each member of the Wyatt Six. We had one on Rowan a couple weeks ago, or last week, or whenever. We had a couple on Bro Dallas and Uncle Howdy. I'm assuming eventually we'll get 1 or 2 maybe about Dexter Loomis, or who is Mercy the Buzzard, and Joe Gacy, who is Huskus the Pig. They're all narrated by Uncle Howdy, which is great. I was curious what they were going to do about, there were rumors they were going to have the Wyatt Six counterpart interview the original person. Like they had Uncle Howdy interview Bo. So people thought they were going to have Ramblin' Rabbit interview Eric Rowan. They were going to have, Abby the Witch interview Nikki Cross. They were going to have Mercy interview Dexter, and they were going to have Huskus interview Joe. But thankfully, they're just having Uncle Howdy narrate each one and be the therapist, I guess. I don't know. The narrator for each one. So that's good stuff. It's good. And then later in the night, Chad Gable's in the ring. He asks Otis Tozawa and Maxine to join back up with him and the Creeds because the Creeds are now associated with Gable. And Gable is telling Otis that he'll protect them. And that, you know, with these people running around, what's better than to have more eyes on watching your back, you know? But Otis reminds him that last week, Gable abandoned the Creeds. Gable and the Creeds got attacked by the Wyatt Six, and Gable ran away and let the Creeds take the brunt of the punishment from the Wyatts. So the Creeds then attack Otis. Gable goes to hand them chairs, and then they do the lights turning off, and then the Wyatts come in. So the Creeds are waiting at the end of the ramp near the ring, and coming through the stage, coming out on the top of the stage is, you know, Abby the Witch, Ramblin' Rabbit, Mercy the Buzzard, and Huskus the Pig. But where's Uncle Howdy? He runs in the ring, stands behind Gable, and he yells, "There you are!" So we get the "There you are," which is a big staple of of what I think it's the code word. I think that's the phrase. That's the catchphrase for Uncle Howdy. So that's great. And then he ends up hitting Chad Gable with the Sister Abigail. So that's pretty cool. So we're using the Sister Abigail. The crowd popped huge for that too. And Bo looked really good doing it. Uncle Howdy looked really good doing it. I will say, we still don't know why Bo Dallas was in Adam Pearce's office last week. I'm hesitant to say what I think it is. I'm really hoping it's not this. But maybe they're going to have Gable and the Creeds against Bo and two other Wyatt Six members. Could be Mercy and Rabbit. Could be Mercy and Huskus. Could be Huskus and Rabbit alongside Uncle Howdy. It could be Rabbit, Huskus, and Mercy against Gable and Creeds. But who knows, honestly. I don't know why Bo would ask for that match. Out of costume, out of character, out of the Wyatt Six character. But it's really cool to see Bo work in a lot of different references to a lot of different Wyatt-verse things. You have him laughing off punishment like Bray used to do. You have him going, yeah, right out of Brody Lee's book, out of Luke Harper's book. And now you have this new phrase of "there you are." And you have him using the Sister Abigail finishing move. And that's really cool. He does it perfectly, too. The kiss on the head and everything. So, awesome stuff. The Wyatt Six continue to be a solid act on Raw. I really hope that they don't wrestle, but maybe that's why Bo was in Adam Pearce's office. Who knows? I'm intrigued. Crowd's loving it. The pop for the Wyatt Six was insane. So, it's all good stuff all around. Pete Dunne versus Bronson Reed actually fails to start because Sheamus attacks Pete Dunne. So, you know, Pete Dunne attacked Sheamus a couple of weeks ago or last week or whatever. The feud has been, Sheamus has been trying to buddy up with Pete Dunne, and Pete Dunne's not having it. We still don't know why Pete Dunne is resisting Sheamus's attempts to resume their friendship after teaming together with the Brawling Brutes. But yeah, Sheamus, you know, they're waiting in the ring. The bell's about to ring, but Sheamus runs in the ring and hits the brogue kick on Pete Dunne. And then ends up hitting Bronson Reed as well with a brogue kick. Dunne then, you know, I believe Sheamus went to size up Dunne for one more, and Dunne rolled out of the ring and escaped. So Bronson ate it instead. And I don't know what the story is here. I don't understand why they're doing this feud with Sheamus and Pete Dunne. I think part of it is that Tyler Bates injured, so they needed something to do with Pete Dunne. But this isn't the only time this week where Pete Dunne showed up. So we'll see where this all goes. I'm confused. I don't really know what they're doing with Sheamus. I don't really know what they're doing with Bronson or Pete, but at least they're all on TV. So, cool. Happy about it. Let's talk about Judgment Day, because we have a lot of stuff to talk about with Judgment Day this week. So they're talking game plan, right? And after they finish talking game plan in the clubhouse, Dom's like, "Hey, Rhea, can I talk to you for a second?" And he reveals that he and Rhea had spent this week reconnecting, but he's still jealous of Jey Uso shooting a shot at Rhea, and he's like trying to make sure that he's trying to make Rhea get the reassurance from Rhea that she's not trying to mess around with Jey, and she's like, "Oh, I'm just messing around, unlike you and Liv." So she calls out Dom and Liv. She's like, "Yeah, I've been looking at your socials. I've been seeing you. I've been seeing everything going on here, what you've been doing." So Finn actually interrupts this conversation and says, "Dom, you should take out Jey Uso." And Rhea's actually against that. She's not a fan of it. She's like, "This doesn't matter. Jey Uso doesn't matter to us. He's irrelevant." And Finn is like noticeably upset. He's rolling his eyes. He's like, Finn is pissed off. Finn is starting to bubble up some anger. And I think Finn is going to be part of this whole a key element of this Judgment Day breakup. So he's clearly been annoyed by Damian and his willingness to go solo for the World Heavyweight title matches that he's been in and being the world champion. He hasn't really been associated with Judgment Day all that much recently. And now that Rhea's back, he has someone else that he has to answer to, that he doesn't want to answer to, that he doesn't feel like he should answer to. And once again, Finn Balor looking like it's going to break up the Judgment Day into two separate ways. It's going to be Damian and Rhea side and then Finn's side. And I don't think Damian and Rhea are going to stay together per se, but they'll probably split off and go their own way amicably once this is all said and done. Later in the night, the Judgment Day are all looking for Jey Uso backstage. Finn and Dominic split from Carlito and JD McDonough, so they're going a different way. And then Finn and Dom split from there. So Finn goes one way and Dom goes down a hallway, and Liv is calling him over to talk to her. She goes to talk to him, and then Finn comes back up, and it makes it look like Dom is talking to Liv. Like he wanted to talk to Liv. Obviously, that was just Liv trying to stir up the pot and call Dom over. She planned it, whatever. So Finn catches Dom talking to Liv, and he's like, "Dude, I just left like 10 seconds ago, and you're already talking to her?" And he's like, "No, it's not what it looks like, whatever." Right? And then they go back to the subject of looking for Jey, and Dom's like, "I think I saw Jey this way." And he's pointing in Liv's direction, which is so interesting because of what happens later in the night. But anyway, Finn's like, "Nah, go the other way. They're going this way. We're not going that way." So Dom, once again, is like, "I think Jey is going this way that Liv's going. We should go that way." But I thought he didn't like Liv. Like, what is going on with this story? I love it. I love it. I can't get a read on it. And that's exactly how it should be. So we then get to a segment in the ring where Dom and Rhea are in the ring. And Liv is talking trash to Rhea from the audience, saying that Dom doesn't go for girls that look like Rhea. He goes for girls that look like her, like Liv Morgan. And she turns around and flashes the camera, like shows her almost like half bare ass to the camera, really pushing these boundaries of PG. God, Twitter was thirsty. The wrestling Twitter was thirsty for that. Oh my Lord. So Dom goes, "Let me handle this," to Rhea. And after multiple attempts to try and shut him out with boos, he finally was able to talk. The crowd actually let him talk. And it Liv's like expecting to hear Dom say, "I love you," but instead, Dom's like, "I hate you. You're ruining my life, blah, 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 this and that." And he's trying to, this is a whole thing of Dom's trying to prove a point to Rhea that he's about her. He's fully about Rhea Ripley, not about Liv. So he completely just berates Liv in front of the entire audience. Liv is crying. And Rhea's clearly happy with it. She full on licks Dom's face and then kisses it. And then they leave together. And to me, it makes sense, but it feels a little too over the top. It felt to me like Dom was going a little over the top to make Rhea feel like he was fully with her, only for SummerSlam to roll around and Dominic to swerve and help Liv win the title or retain the title over Rhea. I think that's the end goal. I think the end goal is Dom is going to pull a swerve and turn on Rhea, and help Liv Morgan retain the women's world title. Because honestly, I love Rhea Ripley, but I think that it wouldn't make much sense to have Liv lose the belt the second Rhea comes back. After all of this build of Liv has been carrying Monday Night Raw, carrying the Judgment Day stories. She's been the glue. She's held it all together. She's been interweaving all these stories with the Judgment Day and each of their different cosms and of members of Carlito and JD and Finn and winning the world tag titles and Dom and Rhea, and what's Dom gonna do? Dom's continued feud with Rey Mysterio and LWO. Like, it just feels so wrong to just have Rhea come back and immediately squash Liv Morgan. And I'm not saying squash as in like destroy her, but I just mean like squash the ambitions of Liv Morgan. Liv deserves to fully see this revenge tour through and finish it with a grand finale of leaving the Judgment Day in rubble, in just an absolute shambles. Have them break up and go their separate ways, and then Liv can turn on Dominic and say, I planned this all along because I wanted to take everything from Rhea Ripley. And that means taking Rhea Ripley's family away. I love it. I if that is what they do, I love it. And Liv Morgan very well may be my women's wrestler of the year, even though she doesn't wrestle all that much. Even though she is simply a character. I don't know, man. I'm loving the storytelling that they do on Monday Night Raw in particular. Monday Night Raw is levels above every other wrestling show out there, in my opinion, for that reason. Jumping into the main event, speaking of this Judgment Day stuff, Sami Zayn and Jey Uso defeat the World Tag Team Champions JD McDonough and Finn Balor in a non-title match. Completely clean victory. Completely clean over the World Tag Team Champions. Which makes me think, excuse me, I'm jumping ahead. Let me jump to that first. Braun Breaker sneak attacks Sami after the match and hits the spear to close out Monday Night Raw. So Sami and Jey win, and then immediately Braun Breaker spears Sami and heads back up the ramp to close out the show. So we're continuing that build of Sami and Braun for SummerSlam. But now that begs the question, back to my original point. This makes me feel, especially after such a clean victory over the World Tag Team Champions in a non-title match, that Sami Zayn and Jey Uso are going to pick up those titles. I think that Sami and Jey Uso are going to win those titles from Finn and JD McDonough to then take them into the Bloodline feud. I know a spoiler from this Friday's SmackDown. I won't mention it. But at the end of the day, with these WWE Tag Team Championships, I think that the Bloodline, Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, are going to win the WWE tag titles from DIY. I don't know when, but I think they're going to do it. And so I think on the other side, we're going to have Sami Zayn and Jey Uso win the World Tag Team Championships from Raw. So then when we have this Bloodline versus Bloodline feud, we have a returning Roman Reigns, who returns after Cody versus Solo at SummerSlam. You have World Tag Team Champions Sami Zayn and Jey Uso. And somewhere along the way, you have a returning Jimmy Uso. And then on the Bloodline, the new Bloodline side, you have Solo, the WWE Tag Team Champions. So you have Solo, the WWE Tag Team Champions, Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, and you have Jacob Fatu. So that way you kind of have this even match of you have both the Tag Team Champions involved, and you have Roman, and you have Solo, and you have Fatu, and you have Jimmy Uso. And I think that would be pretty cool. I think that would be nice. And Sammy will obviously drop the Intercontinental title to Braun Breaker before he goes and wins the tag titles with Jey Uso. But I think that also gives Jey Uso and Sami Zayn something substantive to do besides just the Bloodline feud. We can have them defend the tag titles. And that's a viable tag team. Like, when Cody and Jay won the tag titles from Priest and Balor, I didn't like that. That was just thrown together. But Sami and Jay actually have history from the Bloodline. Deep history from the Bloodline. And I was waiting for them to get a tag title reign when Jay originally jumped over to Raw. But unfortunately, we didn't get that. So we might get that now. So we'll see where that goes. But that's how we closed Raw. A clean victory by the Faces, and then Braun Breaker sneak attacks Sami Zayn with that spear to close the show. Just about reaching the 1 hour mark here. So I don't really want to go too much into NXT. I'll dive in a little bit. I'll talk about the main points. But let's talk about it. So Trick Williams opens the show. He wants to come after Ethan Page in the NXT title. And before he does go out to cut this promo, Cedric Alexander tries to stop him backstage and is like, dude, don't do this. Don't go after Ethan Page yet. It's not going to work. I don't know why Cedric's telling Trick that. It doesn't make much sense, but he does. So Trick cuts his promo. Cedric interrupts. and tries again. And then Ashanti the Adonis comes out to talk trash to Trick. And Trick clowns him for a hit row by saying basically things flopped and, things didn't work out for Ashanti, which really sucks for him, man. So Trick says he's number one in the ring, and Cedric takes offense to that. Out of the three guys in the ring, Trick was number one. And Cedric was like, nah, man, you're mistaking my kindness for weakness. I want a match. He loses that match to Trick Williams later in the night. And then afterwards, Pete Dunne attacks Trick Williams, which there was a backstage segment later on after that opening promo where Dunne was staring daggers into the back of Trick's head. And I think someone came up to him and asked him what he was doing, and Pete Dunne was like, find out. You'll find out. Alexander is presented better than he's been in months, if not years, in this NXT run, and it's only been one night. He lost to Trick, but it's still better than not being on TV at all. And Trick versus Pete Dunne is a really solid feud to hold Trick over until he gets that title back. Because I think that's where we're going. I think Ethan Page is going to hold that title until NXT debuts on the CW, where we have Trick Williams win the title back on that first episode. We spend the whole summer and we spend the fall building Trick back up to be in chase mode to get that title back. And in the meantime, then we can continue to build these heels to then go after Trick. If Pete Dunne sticks around, you could easily have Pete Dunne be a challenger. You could have a couple of different options here. Obviously, Ethan Page can still challenge. I do think Obafemi will challenge for that title at some point if he's not the guy that would take it off of Trick when Trick wins it back. We have a lot of options. Speaking of options to take the title off a babyface Trick, Brooks Jensen defeated Josh Briggs in a no disqualification match. Jensen destroyed Josh Briggs here. There were welts all over Briggs. Sean Spears went to tried to tell Briggs, hey, hit Jensen with the chair, and Briggs couldn't bring himself to do it. So Jensen took advantage and did it some more and eventually got the win. So Jensen needed that win, but so did Briggs, and he kind of looked dumb in that. It was a no DQ match, Josh. You accepted that no DQ stipulation. You should want to use weapons if you want to control your friend. So, interesting stuff, but pairing Brooks Jensen and Sean Spears could be the move long term. So I'm intrigued by that. Eddie Thorpe beat Lexis King. Not a fan of this DJ gimmick at all that Eddie Thorpe's got going. I wish they didn't do that ever. I wish they just stuck with how Eddie Thorpe was before he took this little hiatus and came back. Lexis attacked Thorpe afterwards, and he smashed Thorpe's fingers on the steel steps with the scepter. Lexis King really needs to win this feud at the end of the day. I'm very skeptical that he will. I think Lexis King needs to be built up. He could be a really solid main event heel on NXT, but I don't know what it is. They're just not rolling with it. I don't know. Meanwhile, Oro Menza defeated Ashanti the Adonis later in the night, which is great. Oro needed the win. He's going after Ethan Page in the NXT Championship, so he's got to look strong. I got to say, man, Ashanti the Adonis is such a lost cause. Not like a lost cause. I'm sorry. That's not the right word. It's not that he's a lost cause. It's a shame that they're not using him to his potential. He's got I don't know what it is. I really like the name Ashanti the Adonis, or Ashante. Ashante the Adonis is really cool. I like his presentation. He comes out with a fur coat and shades, and he's all nice looking, like he's like high class, and he's this cocky, arrogant guy. And he seems to be pretty solid in the ring, but he just can't seem to get a win. Even when he does finally get on TV, he doesn't seem to get a win, and that sucks. But that's that, I suppose. Let's hope that Adonis and Alexander can win something next time, because so far they're both 0-1 in NXT after a hopeful entrance back into NXT, hoping that they could revitalize them. We saw Ren Sinclair beat Carly Bright thanks to help from Charlie Dempsey, because Ren Sinclair is kind of blackmailing them into letting her in the group by saying, hey, I saw you kill off Damon Kemp and stuff him in the trunk, so let me in the group or I'm telling everybody. So then they help Ren Sinclair win. It's fine. Thea Hale did a sit-down interview hyping up her match with Roxanne Perez at Great American Bash. It didn't really say much. It was fine. I'm still excited for that match. I'm excited for Thea Hale. I love her work. The fact that she's 20, absolutely insane. Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson defeat Sol Ruka and Carmen Petrovic. Sol tried to save the match, but she was just a split second too late, and Jakara stopped her from doing so. And Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson, the match built up because the two teams wanted to challenge for the women's tag titles. Going back to my story about all these teams wanting to challenge Albert Fire and Isla Dawn, but yet they're nowhere to be found on TV to be challenged. So Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson once again built up to challenge for the women's tag titles, and I hope that they get that title shot. And I hope they're the team from NXT that can win the titles. We still haven't seen an NXT team win the WWE women's tag titles, and I really hope it's the two of them because they are a solid tag team. Very solid tag team. Ethan Page cut a promo. He brought a referee out to announce that Oro Mensah's pin last week was unofficial, and Page is still NXT champion. In that time, Oro Mensah then sneak attacked Page, and he rolled him up again for the ref to once again count 1, 2, 3. So last week it was Oro Mensah pinning out Ethan Page and counting himself, going 1, 2, 3 while he's holding him down. This week, when Page brought the referee out, Oro attacked Ethan, and then the ref that was out there counted that pin. Still not official, but a ref did count that pin. And Oro Mensah versus Ethan Page for the NXT title is now official for Night 2 of NXT Great American Bash. Oro Mensah will not win that match, but good for him for getting a title shot. He's really coming into his own there. He's way to rise to the occasion, for real. Hopefully he shows out. I hope that in the long term it really boosts up his rapport and his stock in NXT. Maybe he can win the Heritage Cup or the North American title. I don't know. Tough to find who's going to beat Obafemi for the North American title. That's for sure. And in the main event of NXT, we had a 6-man tag match as the Rascals defeat Javon Evans, Axiom, and Nathan Frazer. The story being the Rascals challenged Axiom and Frazer to a friendly match later in the night. They needed to find a third partner, and the mystery partner was Javon Evans. And there was nothing really crazy story-wise to tell. It was just an amazing television match, and Zach Wentz got the win over Axiom. So it's pretty sick. And it begs the question, what's next for the Rascals? Are they going to go after titles in NXT and TNA, or are they going to just put on amazing matches together while they have the time to be together and go on this like reunion tour of sorts? Axiom and Frazer might break up as well, so they might put the titles on, I don't know, Wesley and Wentz or Wentz and Trey Miguel. I think it'd be cool to have a TNA guys win NXT titles. I think that'd be really great. Because the whole thing was, before Nathan Frazer was like, "Oh, Axiom, I'm in the speed tournament," and Axiom's like, "Dude, you got to focus on our tag team. Like, what are you doing?" And Frazer lost in the speed tournament, so he never won. He didn't really spend a whole lot of time there. But Axiom was noticeably pissed off that Frazer did that, and now Axiom's like, "Hey, man, listen, I know, I understand why you did that. Now, I heard what you said when we argued about it, and I got a spot in the speed tournament." And now Frazier's like, "Dude, like, what are you doing? You just told me to not be involved in that, and now you are taking focus away from our titles." So it's doing great stuff to kind of eventually be the catalyst for them to break up. Sorry, I just totally smacked my microphone. I need to get better at that. But it's basically setting up a way for Axiom and Frazer to break up. And I think Frazer will go heel out of that, and he'll probably win that feud. But I'm intrigued by that. I'm not really sold on them as a tag team. I'm not super impressed with them. They're both amazing wrestlers, don't get me wrong, but as characters, they're not really incredible to me. I'm not as impressed by them as I want to be. But it's all good. I recognize their talent. I recognize the skill involved. I kind of wish Chase U beat them at NXT Heatwave, but this is like I said before, this is the reality of what we're in right now. And I'm just happy that we have some guys that are really solid in the ring and coming into their own as a tag team for sure. So that's about it for me this week, y'all, for NXT at least. And for my best in wrestling this week, to end it on another positive note, I'm going to give my best in wrestling to Liv Morgan. It's been a relatively slow week news-wise, and it was an eventful week for WWE television, but nothing too crazy. Unfortunately, I don't really follow AEW enough. The other guys usually pick up my slack when it comes to that. So unfortunately, I don't have any AEW notes this week, but my best in wrestling has to be Liv Morgan. I mean, she's been, like I said, she's been putting on the work of her career, man. I really can't complain. I really have no complaints. Like, she's the reason why Raw has been so good recently. And I feel like she deserves a shout out. Liv Morgan, there's to you. And y'all, I'm going to try and keep this brief. So we're going to end it here. But I really, really appreciate you tuning in this week. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're watching right now on YouTube. Make sure to follow us if you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere else that you get your podcasts. Leave a 5-star review. Leave a review for your boys. Who knows? Maybe we'll read your review out on the podcast next week. Yeah, man. If you're listening and you made it this far, clearly you enjoy what we do, or what I do at least, because I'm soloed this week. So go follow us on TikTok at Vacant Wrestling. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel at Vacant Wrestling on YouTube. Hit the bell icon. Make sure you're notified whenever we post content, whether it be videos, shorts. We post a lot of shorts as well. And go tell a friend how amazing this new podcast you found is. Go be that guy that's like, hey, I found this really cool podcast. Be the cool friend to show them something super awesome. Put your friends on. Because the only way we grow is because of y'all. So, y'all, we really appreciate you tuning in this week. Hopefully next week we can get a podcast out by Monday and get a full cast of the other clowns. Y'all, thank you so much. Hope you have a great rest of the week. And we will see you again very, very soon. Take it easy, everybody.